a maple bowl blank. It's about 10 inches in diameter. And it used to be a log, okay? And I took it to the bandsaw, and I put a little sort of a hardwood disc up here, hardboard disc, and I followed that disc around, and we cut out the circle. And I marked a center here. Now, I'm going to use a spur drive, and I'm orienting the spurs at 45 degrees to the grain. The grain's basically running this way. If I orient a spur with the grain, it's going to drive in real hard or real easily, and the one across the grain is not going to drive in at all. So if I kind of split that difference, it'll hold real well. And then we'll put it on the lathe. Now I'm just going to see basically if it's that's going to probably be all right. What I'm looking for is to see if I could get a little creep on something here. Okay, now the tool I'm going to use is an Ellsworth gouge. And all the way around this cutting edge is a continuous convex surface. There's no dips and there's no hills. Okay, I want that to be a continuous convex curve. If I have a dip, that means there are going to be two high spots on either side of the dip. Wood that's contacting them is going to be going at different velocities. It's going to make a catch. So half the catches that people get are due from using a gouge that's improperly ground. As long as you've got a continuous convex edge, that's half the game.
We're going to bother you for just a moment.
I use the Ellsworth jig to sharpen the bowl gouge, and this is basically the Ellsworth grind. The other thing I'll say about this gouge is the front bevel is about 60 degrees. When we come over here to the spot where you do most of the cutting, it's about 40 to 45 degrees. And when you get up on the wing, it's about 30 to 25 degrees. So you have different bevel angles on this tool. And right now, the 40-45 or the 40-40 or 45-45 is real popular. Well, I've got it right here on the corner of my gouge where I do all the cutting. So, now a couple things about safety with this blank is first we want to find a speed that's going to work. I would take this bark off if it would come off, but it's just on there. Probably what's going to happen as soon as I start cutting, it's going to break a piece free. And if we're real unlucky, it's going to hit the camera and break it. It's probably going to hit here. Might go that way. If we get really lucky, it'll launch over and somebody can catch it. Now, so along with that, when this is turning, I don't want to stand here. Now I've got to move back and forth from there a little bit because the controls are over here. I'm going to take my watch off. I'm going to have to move that when I start hollowing it. Oh, we're just finishing the lathe setup, I see. You know, and now's a good time, while I'm picking on Carl, to thank Jan and Carl, because we've got a really good club with some really good turners, but we got the best video crew of any club that I know of. So I want to thank Jan and Carl. Besides making everybody look good, they go out and buy this stuff. And they go to yard sales and find people that, you know, to get this stuff cheap. They're saving us all kinds of money. But anyway, I don't want to stand in front of here, because if this comes off, which it won't do, but it could, and it hits the tool rest, it's going to hit me. About 90% of the time, if it ever does come off, it's going to bounce down here and bounce over there. It's just the way they do it. But we're going to start. You're safe. Okay. So first thing we do is bring this up to speed. Now, my first cut, I'm going to have my arm kind of straight, the tool straight coming right in. I'm just going to kind of cut the corner off. Anybody see the tool bounce? Okay, that's just a really nice beginning roughing cut. And but I can't do it too much, because see how it makes that concave? Because all we're doing is swinging the tool through a curve. That's where I want the fat part of the bowl, so I don't want to do too much of that. Now I'm going to tighten the tool or the tailstock a little bit. Okay, so we sort of have a real rough shape of a bowl, okay? Now, what I'm going to be doing periodically is tightening this tailstock, because these centers, every time I cut, it vibrates the wood, and those centers drive in a little bit more. And when I forget to bring the magic wood that expands, this spur drive over here becomes a 4-bladed spade bit and starts drilling a hole. So then what you do is, when nobody's looking, you just tighten the tailstock and nobody knows, okay? Now, okay, so we got this part done. Now what I'm going to do is come back over to the other side here. And a couple things I want to do is, one, there's still a couple of little piths in here. And, what I can do before I do that is, yeah, this is, actually the grain's pretty well lined up. I'm looking at this line and this line, they're pretty close. We could probably, no, we're just going to leave it like it is. But if I wanted to change the grain, I can just loosen this and move that around. You might want to use the overhead on this one. Now I want to make sure I get down a little bit below that. I want to get a little bit further down. I'm looking at that knot, which was the pith. Now, let's talk a little bit about what we've been doing with the tool, okay? I'm coming in and I'm riding this bevel and we're making a cut. And right there, we got that shaving coming off. And the lathe's doing all the work, okay? So I'm just making this cut going up to the rim. That's a bevel riding push cut. And now I'm going to do a rough put the tenon in, or where I think the tenon's going to be. Okay, when I do tenons, what I do is I'm always going for a 2.5-inch tenon on a piece of wet wood. My chuck will close, the chuck I'm going to use will close to 2 inches. If I do a 2.5-inch tenon, I have never had one that I can't get a 2-inch tenon out of it after it goes oval. So that works for me all the time. Now, I don't measure because I know this is 5/8 of an inch. So if I come out an inch from there, I've got a 2 5/8, or yeah. So I've got that 2.5 inches when I come out, okay, and another 1/8. And that works pretty well. And then here's kind of maybe where the edge of the foot's going to be. And now all I need to do is connect this and this with a pleasing curve. Now, if I don't like the curve, you know, I can change it a little bit. And the other thing I can do is bring the rim down further if I want, or I can bring the bottom up. I mean, this doesn't have to be the bottom of the bowl. I could cut up more, okay?
It is the drain sequence. We've gotten moisture on the lens. Carl's looking for something.
Oh, well, we use the other camera now. Okay, so now I'm just going to okay, here's a case where I'm going to move the bottom up just a little bit here. Okay, now I'm going to make the tenon. And to do that, I'll raise tool rest a little bit because we've got a narrower gouge. And I'm going to cut a dovetail on here. And this is a spindle gouge. But we're using a little dovetail chuck. Now, Carl has a trick. He almost always puts this in the way. Ah, he didn't do it this time. Actually, I don't think Carl set that up. Somebody else did. I got no idea.
I thought that thing was going to just dance across the floor once.
Why?
It looked like it was, well, why? Because it looked like it was up.
But as soon as I turned it up, I was watching to see if it would dance, and it didn't. I might have gone faster, but we were getting too close to the top. I'm going to just push in the spindle lock here, maybe, and just give it a little. What I like to do is give it just a little push, and that little push I can undo, okay? If now I'm going to see if it's out just a little bit, but not much. For a rough out, that's not going to matter. And even when I'm returning a bowl, I might not worry about that one if it's going to be a 1/2 inch or a little bit thicker. Nobody's going to notice that it's off a 64th. If it's going to be an 1/8 inch bowl, then I'll return the outside because somebody can spot a 64th in an 1/8 inch bowl. Okay. And what I usually do, and I didn't say this earlier, I set the tool rest so I'm cutting right at center when the tool is parallel to the floor. It's just the way I like to have it set. And then sometimes I'll drop the handle for different curves or different cuts. But especially important when I'm hollowing this out because I want to be able to go right to the center. Okay. And I'm just for right here, I'll use the tailstock just in the beginning here. Just while I'm taking this wood off. Especially if I don't lock the tool rest down. Oh. This is one of the bad things about the Powermatic. They got this massive tool rest and this little itty bitty screw to hold this thing. All we're doing is that bevel riding push cut is going right down that centerpiece. And then this is a scraping cut, using that lower wing to scrape. I'm I'm just going to tighten the chuck one time just to make sure. And then we need to get rid of this tailstock. Somewhere around here is when we figure out if we really lock that on. Now we're going to hollow this bowl out, and I'm going to start here, let that flute point straight in, and then I'll just swing it around and cut a little semicircle. Now we're going to get a sharp tool. That tool was probably sharp enough to finish, but since I've got sharp ones, now let me talk and stop and talk about what I just did here. Okay, I'm cutting down here. I'm cutting across all the long fibers. It's like cross-cutting. It's a real nice cut, okay? Then as I begin coming down here, I'm going straight into the end grain almost. End grain's harder than all those cross fibers. So what I'm doing is down here I'm taking about a 1/2 inch shaving, whatever that is. And right here, it's starting to get a little bit too much end grain. So I pull the tool out about halfway and cut across, okay? Now I'm taking, if I was taking a 1/2 inch, now I'm taking a 1/4 inch. So that cuts real better, okay, or much better. So I'll finish that and I'll come back and I'll finish that. So when I get down in there, I'm taking 1 cut on the side and 2 across the other thing that helps here, if I can keep a continuous curve going, then I'm always cutting across fibers to some extent and not straight into the end grain. Now, for thickness of the wall, what I want is about 10% of the bowl diameter. Okay, so we're real thick down here. And for the bottom, I'll generally make that about, if we're making this, says 10-inch bowl, 9 inches, we'll make it about 1 inch thick. The bottom I'll make about, less than 3/4 inch thick. Because two things, I've got the tenon on the other side, so it makes it thicker. And the bottom's not going to move as much, and it's not going to lose water as fast because it's all long grain, okay? Right here is where it's going to lose the water the fastest. And now what I want to do is I'm just going to finish cut the rim a little bit, or not finish cut, but rough cut and finish it just a little bit. And one thing I didn't mention safety-wise, this gets very, very sharp. So don't hit it with your arm or you'll be at the emergency room. So it's always good to take a little piece of sandpaper or just soften the edge with a tool. Okay, so now we're ready to finish down in there. I have this little J rest that's from Robust. Don Geiger has these. If you want to get one, he can hook you up with one. In fact, I think I got this one from Don. Again, right at center. Do the overhead one. Okay, when I'm doing these, okay. What I do is, okay, open these calipers up a little bit. And I can see right there, I put my finger in there, and it's getting more and more open as I come down, and I've almost got like a little more wood out of there, maybe a little bit here. In here, it's pretty good. So I want to take a little bit here, and then a little more off the bottom. Uniform's more, what I really want is take more out of the bottom. This is maple. It won't crack. When we throw it in the corner, it won't crack. This one will not crack.
Okay, but still, if you're gonna do it, uniform,
I just like to
make up
make it right, especially in a demo.
make up for the like,
Huh?
kind of to make up for the foot.
Yeah, so I've got a little thinner down here now. If you do the overhead, when we come here, okay, we're right there. We got, see how much we got? So we got the, before it was right here, so now I didn't have, that was what I was more worried about. And as long as I was here. Now I got a bump here, but we won't worry about that. What some people like to do is soften that edge, just because they allege that you got that little right angle, it's bad, but this is good. Shoo. No. And see, I've got the center marked here, so when I go to return it and it's dried, that center's going to be there, and I'll keep it. And I would put this in a paper bag.